Referred to in your family as the Impressionist.
Yes.
How did it come into your family?
Well, I don't know. Maybe my father bought it. He collected paintings. I've had it hanging up in my bedroom and it doesn't look very interesting there at all. And it's the first time I've ever seen it with the sun shining straight on it, and it looks so
Isn't that
beautiful.
astonishing? And it's the sunlight upon snow, because this is a snow scene, I think. So it seems to be a French village, or the outskirts of a village. Date-wise, it seems to be early 20th century. Okay, you're getting close, because you called it the Impressionist. And Impressionism is what this is really all about. And when it was introduced in 1870 as a style, as an approach to art, it was revolutionary. It was the artistic equivalent of splitting the atom. And suddenly people looked at form, looked at shape, colour, nature, approached subject matter in a completely different way. The thing that one can really enjoy are these conspicuous brushstrokes. And as your eye burrows into the bottom right-hand corner, you can see these curly strokes. The strokes themselves become an animated part of the overall composition. It's as if they border on sculpture. And this was something that Monet was so good at. He reinvented the brushstroke. And this artist, whoever he may be, has clearly looked at Monet. Now, I know that it's signed bottom right, and you've tried to work out what it says. Artists don't often make it easy for you to read the signature, but this one is a little bit more readable than one might imagine. The artist is Gustave Loiseau.
Oh, right.
Now, who is he? Well, he was an Impressionist, but if you were to rank Impressionism, you would put the top figures, people like Monet, people like Pissarro, all of whose influence can be seen beaming down upon this, just as the sun is now. This artist is clearly aware, he's enthralled of it all, but he's not quite learnt to have the same vision and clarity as those artists, but nonetheless, he's learnt the language. And this is what we're dealing with, an artist who is a second-rate Impressionist. Oh,
what a shame.
But this is what we're dealing with, a second-rank Impressionist. We know, for example, this artist was born in the late 19th century. We know that he got a legacy from his grandmother. And as a result of that, he was able to leave his job as a decorator and become an Impressionist.
Oh, he was a decorator.
He was a decorator to start with.
Fascinating.
And perhaps one could see a bit of that, do you think? A bit of dragging and rolling?
Yes. And perhaps he thought that house there was in need of a lick of paint.
Well, why not? Let's just say that if it were by Monet or Pissarro, you could add a few noughts here.
Yes.
But even though it's not, it's still worth between about £10,000 and £15,000.
Oh, goodness. Well, that's very good news. Thank you.
What a lovely flash of green this is. When I first saw this portrait, it was from about sort of 40 metres away across the lawn. As I got closer, you know, so I can see what it is. Yeah. And it's a portrait of a girl. Is this any relation of yours?
Yes, it's my mother.
Is it?
Yes.
Does your mother remember being painting?
Oh yes, and she remembers, because this is a scrapbook.
Ah, she's looking at
a scrapbook.
An empty scrapbook.
And she remembers the scrapbook.
Yeah.
We always had this one in the family, and it always hung in the drawing room, and it was all just part of family life.
Signed very clearly with the date 1915.
Yes.
The artist, Thomas Robinson, was born in Edinburgh. You know, so there's a bit of sort of flash Scottish colouring thrown in as well. You know, they have a talent for that. Actually, having seen the green and being sort of drawn like a sort of a trout towards a fly, a second thought came to me, and that's the date of this picture, 1915.
Yes.
So much happened, as we know, around there in the 1418 war, and so too in art, because, you know, before this date you had all of that magnificent Edwardian plumage. You had people like Sargent and de Laszlo producing images of children and society in such a confident way, and then after 1918, you know, it was a bruised and shocked scene, and you feel that in art at the time. And this being in 1915, it was just at the commencement of this sort of hideous trauma, really.
Right. Yes, yeah.
To me, it's a lovely sort of transitional portrait, you know, the old regime as seen through the eyes of a child. Yeah. And as to value, well, it is a portrait of your mother, I appreciate, and I wouldn't want to put a price on her from that point of view. No. But just as a portrait of a girl by a middle-ranking artist of quality, it's worth, I don't know, £2,500.
Oh, really? Yes. I mean, I never even thought about that. it's just what we have at home.
Well,
Yes.
quite right too.
Yes.
I can't really escape from this arresting stare. Do you know much about this man?
Well, he was a Japanese painter who went to live in Europe in the early part of the 20th century. And at some stage in his life, he traveled the world and finished up in Mexico, which was where my grandparents lived, and met them there. And he gave this picture to my grandparents and also signed their visitor's book, which was rather nice of them.
I mean, you're dealing with a hugely important figure in 20th century art here. I mean, Foujita. He started in Tokyo, trained there. Much to his father's distaste, he then decided to go west and found himself knee-deep in all of these impressionists and post-impressionists in Paris. He must have cut a rather interesting figure, you know, a Japanese with an intensely Japanese way of doing things, but amidst all these Frenchmen, these great names, you know, who were hanging out in the bars and what have you. Very quickly, he became anointed as something special. And then must be about this time he went off and met your grandfather, you say, in Mexico.
Yes, well, my grandfather was a civil engineer, and he went out to Mexico, I suppose, to make his living. And he, at one stage, well, he started off as chief engineer of the Mexican Light and Power Company.
And you've got his visitor's book here, signed by some very interesting people. I mean, clearly, he was quite a mover and shaker, quite a socialite out there.
Well, yes, I don't think we should exaggerate, because it was a very small, small pond.
Ah, right, okay.
But any Anglo-American who went, would probably visit the Anglo-American community.
But there were some big fish in that small pond, were there not? I mean,
well,
am I just looking at the list here? And
yes.
I mean, what sort of people? You know this book better than I do, obviously, but I haven't started looking through it.
Well,
Who else is here?
well, about page 2 is Somerset Maugham, there's Charles Lindbergh, there's Aldous Huxley, there's, I mean, they weren't all Europeans, there's even Diego Rivera, who, of course, is the famous Mexican painter that we know about now.
Fabulous.
And it's rather fun. I mean, there's hundreds of signatures in there, most of which I can't recognise, but there's a couple of dozen that I can, and that's rather fun.
And amidst them is a drawing, or in fact, two drawings.
Two drawings by Foujita.
By Foujita himself. So,
yes.
So not only did your grandparents end up with this fabulous self-portrait, but they got a little bit extra too in their book, in their visitor's book.
And they also got his third wife as well.
Now, looking at the picture, when I first saw it, I began to think, well, is this actually on paper? No, can't be. Looking carefully, it's on silk, isn't it?
It is on silk, and it's pen and ink, isn't it, I think?
Appears to be.
Yes.
And how did it end up in your possession? Were you just given it by your grandparents?
My grandmother said that when her husband died, everything of value was sold, and here's something of no value, you better have it.
Let's think about value. For these drawings here in the book, I mean, they're quite slight, but they're fun and rather graceful. I love this head. I suspect she's worth £2,000 to £3,000.
Really?
Not bad for a visitor's book signature,
No,
is it,
that's
really?
right.
And this rather delightful one of Father Christmas. In fact, this is another self-portrait, is it not? I'm going to put £2,000 to £3,000 on that as well.
Right, right.
Which brings us to the big one. And do you know what this this object of no value is worth?
I have it insured for £7,000.
Try 50. £50,000, that is.
Oh dear. Oh well, I'll give it to my children, I think. Thank you very much.
We've had.
Am I right in thinking that this activity we're seeing here, this factory activity in these aeroplanes, took place around us?
Yes. This is the Wellington bomber that was designed here by Barnes Wallis.
I must say, it's got a feel of this place. Now, I can't help noticing the signature, boldly stated Baronet Ancora Terrence Cuneo. Cuneo, the mouse man, of course. We're all looking for a mouse in this picture.
Well, you can keep looking, but you won't find one here. The mouse came in around about 1956, and then it appeared in all of his paintings thereafter. This was painted in 1944, so it's long before that time.
I can see this picture in all sorts of different ways. I think it's a wonderful example of history. I mean, this is not only a work of art, because the way the colours are done, the way the crisp shapes present themselves to you, actually makes an aesthetic composition, something you're happy to live with. But also, the more you look at it, almost as if you're looking for a mouse,
Yes.
the more you see. And it's an astonishing example of what paint can do. I think in some ways paint can work better than photography, and I think this does the trick.
I think if you look around, there's all sorts of little details, like the man working on a vice here, like this lady here with a hairstyle that's obviously in the 40s, and all it is just a flash of paint.
what is so interesting to me is that the artists are always seeking picturesque, atmospheric, romantic escapism in their subject matter. But in a curious sort of way, in a really sort of robust way, Terrence Cuneo has found it in a factory. And he's a man who, I think, has immortalised a certain aspect of human endeavour, nationhood, and the great Wellington bomber, which of course was a very important tool in the Second World War. And as I look at this painting, I ask myself the question, where is the artist sitting? I mean, to my mind, he's almost sort of hanging from a basket. He's looking right down, and he's getting a sense of the huge depth of the place. Although I feel it may be slightly exaggerated, it's a sort of optical effect. Almost he's delivering more than is humanly possible. But the great thing is he's an artist, so he can get away with it. So we ought to think about a valuation, and what a difficult picture to value. I think if two people were having a dogfight with this at auction, I could see it making £20,000 to £30,000.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Pictures come to our table in all sorts of forms, but I must say I'm a real sucker for things in boxes. And when you open the lid of this box, I was astonished by the colours of what came out.
Yes.
Now, there's a story here. This is a house, obviously about 150 years old, looks 1820s, 1830s. Where is it?
In a little place called Mickleham in Surrey, an estate called Ashurst.
And what it seems we're dealing with here is a group of watercolours by a very distinguished landscapist and architect called Thomas Allen.
Yes.
And that really interesting combination of artist and architect makes these things really stand out. There's as much loving detail to do with how the house works as the atmosphere around it. What can you tell us about the house itself? Is it still standing?
No, the house is gone. It's gone. But the site is still there, and the drive that leads up to it.
What a tragedy, though. I mean, what a
shame,
isn't
yes.
it? I mean, let's just take a look at some of them in detail. I mean, I think there's 12 in all.
There are, yes.
Here we have the house and what looks like the occupants as well in the garden. So it's not just about the architecture, it's not just about the people, but it's about the atmosphere and the domestic scene, which makes it also unusual, doesn't it?
Yes, and they're all real people. This is the owner, William Strawn, who was the great-grandson of the printer, William Strawn, who printed Dr. Johnson's dictionary.
So this is boastful new money or second generation
yes,
money?
I think it is. He was probably the first member of the family who just sat on his seat, as it were, as a gentleman.
Well, what a beautiful seat. But let's look at some of these other ones, because what gladdened my heart was a good, hard focus close-up
This is lovely,
of the
isn't it?
wealthy couple themselves.
I know. This is Elizabeth, his wife, who is the daughter of Sir George Fisher. And she was a playmate of Queen Victoria's when she was a princess in Kensington Palace.
Oh, really? So not just new money, but socially well connected
Oh, yes.
as well.
I think
he
did
married
very
well.
I think he did.
How on earth did these come to you? And did they come to you in a box as well?
They came to me in this very box. I inherited them from the widow of William Strawn's grandson in 1975.
Now, am I right in thinking this is the first time that they've seen the light of day?
The very first time that they've ever been seen.
What is thrilling about them, which is connected, of course, to the fact they haven't been outside, is these are as crisp as if they were painted yesterday.
I hardly ever see them. They're in this box, under a chest of drawers.
And as for valuation, well, Allen is not a very commercial artist,
No.
although I think what we're dealing with here is a unique survival in its completeness. We're also dealing with something that is delicious on the eye.
Yes.
And I'm comfortable at valuing this collection of 12 uniquely preserved watercolours of a slice of English life and architecture at around about £20,000.
Yes. I'm not too surprised. They're so lovely to have, and I thought this was a good opportunity to bring them out of their box to let a few other people see them too.
Well, thank you for letting us do so.
Good. Can they go back in their box?
Yes, they can indeed, yes. Yeah.